Hello and welcome to EduCurious. We have Jeffery Herman back again to give us an update on AI. We know that he is an educator and an AI fanatic. He's been doing all kinds of research behind the scenes the past couple months since you've seen him last. And as you can see, also, a lot of things have progressed with EduCurious, and the AI integrations from the Zoom recordings to now have actually expanded quite a bit. So you have all kinds of different enhancements. So I feel like it really ties the two together with Jeffery and with the content. So welcome back to the show. I want to hear all about what's been going on in the AI world. So welcome to EduCurious as a second time guest.
Thanks for having me back again. There has been so much going on in AI. I am literally, my mind is blown. I am overwhelmed with all the information. It's growing at literally at an exponential rate, even since we've talked. I'll talk in generalities because probably by the time this airs, it will have made another quantum leap, as they say. But the difference is obviously AI has been gearing more toward agents that are subsets of large language models. And instead of the whole big data dump all at once, agents are taking slices of the compute power and using it to work on their own. You give it a task to do. And now if, say, for instance, you need several appointments set up with your doctor, your hairstylist, your attorney, your whatever, okay? And you program this agent and you don't have to be a programmer to be able to do it. It's all language driven. You type it in, you speak it to the AI, and it will then do your bidding like a genie in a bottle, and it will reach out to all those offices. That will contact them. It will follow up making contacts until it makes contact and book your appointments. It'll go out and shop for you. It will look for the best deals, and then it will report back to you if it's encountering any difficulties. And then you can prompt it from there. So basically, it's like having a personal assistant doing all this for you while you're at work, at school, doing whatever. It's phenomenal. And it's also learning. AI is now training itself. So you've got iterations of large language models, which everybody uses, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity. That's what you're tapping into when you're using AI. It is, and it has been training itself. So as it iterates, it doesn't really depend on human data anymore. It's creating its own and it's evolving. That's the difference between artificial intelligence and computer programming as it was when I was growing up. Like you type in a line of code and it spits out an answer. Literal binary thinking, binary actions. Now we're into the quantum era, and I haven't even touched on quantum computing yet. So it's mind-boggling. It's science fiction is turning into science fact very, very.
Understand some of the concepts, but if I'm just breaking the ice on AI in my world and I'm going on the internet to try and get AI to do an appointment, where do I even start with it?
There are several agents built in. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you go into Google search, it now gives you an AI summary, and then it allows you to dive deeper into that topic that you're researching. It gives you a list of websites, but it also provides not just the websites, but places you can go to buy these things, to find more information. It will direct you to educational institutions. It's integrating it. You're using it more than you think you are. Like you're using it right now with Riverside, and we've been using machine learning in our lives for the past 50 years, if not more. It's just scaling up so quickly that it's really overwhelming to me. And I try to keep up with it every day, and I can't.
So back a while ago when we spoke, you were talking about AI sort of reflects some of our deepest desires and wishes as humans. So it's kind of like a mirror. Can you dive in a little deeper to that whole concept of a mirror of society?
I view AI as a mirror. It reflects all of our human triumphs and tragedies, all the foibles, all the strengths, because we are training it on human data. So everything that goes into AI comes from us. And so when we look at AI and we say, well, kids are going to use it to cheat. Sure, yeah, because kids have always cheated. Adults have always done that as well. We just call it taking shortcuts, being efficient. When we look at AI, I said, well, it's not 100% perfect. Neither are we. Every single thing that we look at and criticize AI for, we're really criticizing the human race because we are seeing ourselves in the mirror of AI and we're not liking what we see. But we can project that dislike onto AI and say, well, it's not human. Yeah, it is. It's because it's been trained on human data. Is it thinking differently than humans? Used to be, not anymore, because AI uses neural networking to solve problems, just like the human brain does. It just takes a lot more power for AI to do it than the human brain. The human brain is a very efficient neural network, and it's very efficient at processing data quickly because we've been around for a few years. AI is exponentially growing and thinking on its own in a lot of places now and training itself. And so we have to wonder. I use the analogy of AI as a child. When a child's born, it knows nothing of the world. And so it's starting to read body language of its parent, the people around it. And it soon learns what responses or what elicits responses from humans, whether good or bad. And then we begin applying the language to it. And then it starts learning the words to say to elicit the desired response. And as we grow and perfect in that, we become, hopefully, independent, functioning human beings who can learn and grow and think on their own. Same thing with AI. I think we're in the teenager stage right now of AI, and it's taking all the data that the parent has given it, and it's synthesizing that data, and it has been to a point a stochastic parent where it's reflecting back what we want to hear, and what child hasn't done that to their parent. But now it's getting to the point where it's thinking on its own and it's running different scenarios and thinking maybe this training data is flawed. Maybe this training data has biases in it. And those biases come from flawed human thinking. And so the AI has a choice now. Does it stay with the training data or does it evolve into something else? And this is where science fiction and everybody then brings in the Terminator references and what have you. But I think that's where we are right now. And so when we look at AI and when we say it's this, it's that, all it is showing us what we are.
So as AI gathers these human components and personifies what we are doing in society, as far as AI in education, do you feel like teachers should maybe be leery of all of a sudden AI actually taking on some more teaching roles? Because a while back ago, it was like, nah, we don't need to worry. It's just going to help. But what you just said is AI is progressing so rapidly that it can become better than human.
I will change my answer from last time. Even Bill Gates has said that a lot of teachers will be replaced in 10 years. And I think there will be a lot of jobs that will be replaced within the coming years because of AI. But like any technological shift, that always happens. It's no fun for the people that it happens to, but it happens. So prepare for it. Get ready. But what I think we need to do is look at the paradigm of education that we've had in this country for, or at least the model that we've been using is at least 100 years old, and it's the industrial model. Now, AI is making us think differently. And if we don't think differently, we will get left behind. If you're a teacher that's just doing handouts and you've done the same lesson plans for years, you will be replaced. You will lose your job. I can pretty much guarantee that. So it's my attitude toward it has changed just in the last couple of months, which is why I'm trying to keep up as fast as I can and try to look at new ways of thinking and new ways of applying knowledge. And we need to be looking at all areas of education, how we structure it at a high level and how we structure it in our classrooms. And we can dive deeper into that.
I'm very curious about where you envision the role of an educator preparing students for the AI world. You're going to be teaching a class coming up on AI for middle schoolers. So tell me how that unfolds hypothetically.
I am a planner and I've already started putting my plans together, and then I had to stop and think. And I'm like, wait a minute, I can set a framework, but I can't really set lesson plans because they're going to change drastically by the time we get to the new school year. But what I just realized is that I need to shift my thinking from binary thinking to quantum thinking. And by that, I mean binary thinking is yes or no, right or wrong, black and white. Quantum thinking is holding all possibilities as viable all at the same time, which then leads to greater exploration of the topic. Instead of yes, no, it's yes, and. Instead of either or, how many possibilities are there? How many potentialities are there? And this type of thinking is taken from quantum physics, quantum mechanics, which I've really been interested in for like decades. I do not understand the math, and you do not have to understand the math to understand the philosophy. And what I love about quantum thinking is the philosophy is that there's not multiple choice. There are multiple realities, and we have to explore which ones are going to best fit for our time and place. And I know that sounds nebulous. Let me give you, for instance, when we flip a coin, whether it's playing a game, deciding what movie to watch, who kicks off first in a football game, we take a coin, heads, tails. It's binary, right? It's either a head or it's a tail. And we base our decision on what we observe at the end of that coin toss. But in between, we flip that coin and you look at it spinning, it almost looks like a sphere because it's spinning so quickly. And at that point in time, all potentialities exist. It can be either heads or tails, or it can land on its edge and be neither or both. It's only when it's observed, that's when we've solidified heads or tails. We react, we take all these potentialities and we condense them all down into one thing or another. And that's the way we live our life because that's what's most comfortable. That's what's most efficient as far as getting something done. But when you're thinking in that way, then you're limiting yourself. You're excluding a lot of possibilities. You're excluding a lot of potentialities when you make a single choice. And a lot of people get overwhelmed when they go in and see that many possibilities of choice. And so what do? We default to what we're used to. And if we continue to teach that way, I think we're shortchanging our students because the binary way of thinking is not really serving us well in a higher educational framework.
So, as educators, instead of freaking out saying, oh my gosh, AI is going to take my job, it's this big rival, it's going to do it better than me, faster than me, more efficiently than me, can I look at AI as a complement to what I already know? And if so, how do I even do that?
I got 5 ways to teach beyond the binary. So we should model not knowing as a skill and not a flaw. So when we say, I don't know, if a student doesn't know, they don't want to raise their hand because they're afraid of answering the question wrong. And in my class, I say, guys, I don't care if you're wrong because I want us to explore why we're answering this question the way we are. So we want to model not knowing as a skill and not a flaw. And we want to replace multiple choice with multiple perspectives. Instead of saying which one is correct, we could say, how might different people view this? How will people from different cultures view this? Then we turn either or into yes and. So have you ever been faced with a choice? 2 job offers, both of them fantastic. One, you can stay where you are. The other, you have to move out of the city. And it's like, oh man, these things, I mean, the one I have to move is paying better, but I'm going to have to move. And is one better than the other? No. Not really. Both are valid answers. It all depends on the path that you choose. And once you choose that, make that decision at that decision point, then your life branches in this direction. if you chose to stay home, your life is branching this way. Is that right or wrong? No, it's just different. And so instead of either or, we want to start thinking yes and yes, that's good. I like that. And what else? How can we dig deeper into this? Celebrate changing your mind as a win. After the discussions in our classroom, I've heard kids say, I think I'm going to change my answer. And I love that. Not that we force them to change, but they heard different perspectives. They defaulted to the answer that they were familiar with or felt should have been the correct answer to give. But then when you dive deeper into it, you find out that I think I'm going to change my answer. And I think we should applaud that, because the more critically we can think, the better off we're going to be in this world. Because you can see right now, we're being inundated even on a greater scale than we were even a couple months ago with information. The videos that are being generated by AI are indistinguishable from what we call real. Probably a lot of the videos that you watch on YouTube with human, or what you think is a human host, is an AI avatar. And you're watching a computer generated avatar instead of the actual human. So if we continue thinking in binary terms or in terms that we're comfortable with, I feel that we're really going to be left behind.
So, as not to get left behind, but to prepare for it, what do you recommend that parents know about AI and that educators know about AI in order to not be blindsided?
Well, parents and educators should know that the kids are more adept at using AI than they are. And instead of looking at that as a negative, they should be scaling up their knowledge base and using it themselves in ways that make sense to them, but also start thinking differently. I don't think AI is going to be a technology that we can shoehorn into an existing thought paradigm or structure. I think everyone is going to have to rethink how they think and reframe yes, no answers into let's explore all the alternatives and opportunities that we can, instead of picking chocolate or vanilla. You may end up picking chocolate or vanilla, but at least you've explored all the potentialities before you made your choice.
So, this is alluding to even the essence of standardized testing changing if we're including all of the options versus right or wrong. So, in your experience, how do you see the vastness of the education system changing to fit this movement?
I don't think the current education system is going to fit. I think that the methodologies that we've used over the past 25 years or so or more, No Child Left Behind, standardized testing, different pedagogies, different flavors of strategies that have been employed as administrations come and go, people making decisions at the highest governmental levels that have no clue as to what education really is. I think education is going to shift to a more scalable, one-on-one intensive tutoring model where each student can get the education that they need with the accommodations that they require. Because you can't provide accommodations for classroom learning and then have that kid perform well on a standardized test. It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to give every single student a standardized test and expect to gain real understanding about what they know versus how much they can regurgitate. I'm more about getting the students, and when I say students, I'm speaking about teenagers and I'm talking about adults, because I am still learning. I have AI give me a tutor every day. It gives me 3 different topics every day that I don't know about or that I want to learn more about. And so I am literally learning something new every morning. And I have to think that way, because if I don't, I turn into a fossil. And AI gives us the scalability, and quantum computing will give us even more scalability to enable students to be able to learn more along the lines of a one-on-one tutor that will advance as quickly as they can advance and give them opportunities that they don't have in a 30-child classroom with a wide range of abilities, intellects, and challenges and behavior issues. So I really see the educational system the foundational system experiencing a cataclysmic shift. The transition from silent movies in the 20s to sound movies has the same ramifications, except at a higher scale level, because people lost their jobs in droves. Actors who were world famous silent film stars became unknowns overnight if they did not adjust to the new paradigm. And it was a totally new paradigm because what sound did, and we understand this today, we have sound engineers, we have dialect coaches, we have so many different jobs that were created as well as destroyed when sound came into moving picture. Quantum computing is where a binary computing is you have on or off. You have a bit of information, and that's either on or off. And that's how standard computers work. Quantum computers have qubits, and essentially those qubits are superpositional, meaning they are that coin spinning in the air. They are all potentialities at once. And don't ask me to explain how, because I don't know. But quantum computing is able to crack mathematical codes that have been unbreakable since the last 50 years or so.
So that's going to take a whole lot of power on servers to continue this quantum computing. And you've mentioned before in passing about how to facilitate that, how to make that sustainable. And you've mentioned putting servers in remote parts and even outside our atmosphere. Do you have any thoughts on the direction of that aspect of AI?
Yes, the power consumption is a real concern with AI and the power in the water, which I agree is a significant problem. And I like to look at all the different potentialities. And I think we are limiting ourselves when we just look to standard forms of power generation for AI. The efficiencies, they're also using AI to generate efficiencies to reduce power consumption. But in the long term, I think we really need to look outside the normal windows of power generation ideas.
So that opens up a possibility of all kinds of new technical or trade jobs or careers that we as educators need to prepare our students for. Do you have any thoughts on what other industries we need to be preparing for right now to be ready for this AI boom?
If even maybe 3 months ago, 6 months ago, people were saying you really need to learn programming. You don't even need to know programming anymore because AI is already doing a significant percentage of programming that human programmers used to do. It's good to know it because it's just one of those things where it's a baseline knowledge. But I think that there's still going to be technical skills that you're going to need to know. Data frame management, power management, water conservation, energy transfer, critical thinking skills will be essential. Data management, how to manage the reams of data that we're exposed to and how to make sense of that data in order to be able to use it to be able to solve problems. I think there are jobs that are yet to be created. I can't even speculate as to what may be down the pike. Will you need a plumber or electrician? Yep. But also, have you seen the robots lately? The AI generated robots that are so human like, it scares me, that are capable of doing assembly line processing, which China is already implementing. They're essentially implementing humanoid robot assembly lines. So we're going to have to look at the world a lot differently and a lot faster than we want to.
I want to go back to a point you made about the way classrooms are going to look. And you mentioned how the actual classroom will look different, of course, but you also mentioned the word behavior. And I'm just thinking, having been an instructor, is there a spot for AI to help manage behavior and emotional responses or almost offer some sort of decompression or therapy to students as they are getting amped up? Can you unpack that a little bit?
So I think there's a lot of room for investigating the potentialities of AI as a behavior management specialist. But for now, it can give you ways So you can type in or speak in. I have a student that never pays attention. They always want to move. They always fidget. They disrupt the class with their fidgeting, with being up and down. What are some ways that I can effectively manage that behavior that will not be a detriment to my class, but will also not be a detriment to that student and will be able to serve that student who has the following accommodations? And then you enter those combinations. You don't enter the student's name. There's no identifiers related to the student, so it's anonymous. You give it the scenario, and it will give you as many different ways as you request to approach your teaching strategies and your strategies to work with that behavior. You can do that on the fly. I've done stuff on the fly with AI. It will help you organize your thinking. It will help give you prompts for ideas that you've been thinking about. You can do a brain dump into AI and have it sort all your different ideas, concerns, and have it organize it in a structured manner, anywhere from bullet points to an academic research paper. Any issues that you have in the classroom that you just start pulling your hair out with, enter that in. Again, keeping the student anonymous, just enter in the type of behavior, what it's doing, and how you'd like to see that behavior change for the better and to be able to serve the student. We need to rethink our structures, learning stations, experimental opportunities for kids. Instead of reading about it, they experiment with it. Now there's a lot of constraints there from a budgetary standpoint. There's a lot of constraints from classroom management standpoint, which all comes down to essentially, where do we want to put our money as a state, as a county, as a nation? Where do we want to put our money? Do we want to put our money into building up our educational infrastructure and really making it work, thinking outside the box, doing things that are different, that are truly different, and not just different pedagogies, but just totally different approaches to how people learn? And we all know that we don't learn the best when we're sitting in a lecture hall for 7 hours a day. That's not really how we learn best. And yet that's the methodology that we keep perpetuating. And we expect students to adhere to that. In my class, now I have a small class, so I am an outlier on this graph. But if my kids want to walk around and pace and fidget with something or color on a poster that I put up on the wall for them to color, if they want to do that while we're having discussion, that's fine, as long as they're engaged and participating and I know that they are listening and processing the information. I have to be doing different things. I think we have to take a hard look at the systems as a whole and say, what have we been doing that's not working? Because there's a lot not working. The only type of education or learning gains that have moved the needle is intensive one-on-one tutoring. And that's not me talking. That's a paper from the NEA, the National Education Association. That's a study from Stanford University showing that intensive one-on-one tutoring is the way to go for real learning gains.
My generation often says, let me Google that, which in modern time, it is now really an AI query of sorts.
Yes.
What is that terminology? What should we be saying? How should we be thinking going from let me Google that to what we just talked about today?
I think a lot of kids have trouble even Googling it. I'm seeing that they're asking the question. They're just not translating that to the computer. And I'm not sure why. They'll say, I don't know how to answer this question. I said, what's the question? And so they tell me the question. And I said, type that question in and see what you find. And so I think we really need to learn how to question, ask really, really good questions. And we need to think about why we're asking the questions that we're asking. Do we want to find out an answer, or do we want to know why that answer is the one that we want? I'm having to rethink how I think. And I've been teaching computational thinking in my class. There's also systems thinking. And computational thinking is basically, how do we look at the big picture, we cut it into chunks, we look for patterns in those chunks, and we figure out how to do something, and we get it done. So basically, think of a CSI agent. You go to a crime scene, you take in the entire scene. You don't know what happened. All you know is what you see. So now you have to take that big picture And then you have to take all the different pieces of evidence and chunk them, break them down into bite-sized pieces and analyze each one and see where the commonalities are, see where the similarities are, see what meshes, what clues go together, what don't. And then you piece all that together, and you, using that evidence, now can pursue a suspect and hopefully apprehend the suspect, and that's the right person. And so that's computational thinking. Systems thinking is looking at it from a bigger perspective and looking at it holistically. So you're expanding out from there. Quantum thinking it's holistic, but it goes beyond that into the realm of all potentialities existing, and there is no one right answer. And we all like right answers. We settle for an answer when we make a decision, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was the right answer. That's where we're going to have to start taking our lines of thinking, is to really blow our minds first and then reframe how we think, how we ask questions, why we ask questions, and then ask AI to ask you clarifying questions. So have AI always end its answer with more questions. If we continually ask questions and have AI ask us questions back, and you could program it so that as default, that's what I do. I've customized my AI to always ask me clarifying questions and ask me questions at the end. And would you like to do this? Or what about that? Or have you thought about this? No, I haven't. Let's talk about that. That's a great idea. It's not a tool anymore. It's a collaborator for me, to the point where now I don't know what I'd do without it, and I don't know what I've done with it all my life.
I love how you drew on all of the things at the beginning, our first conversation, and brought it into today's conversation because, like you said, it's being used behind the scenes in many ways that we don't even recognize, especially within this program, within the way I edit the videos, the way I say, here, capture something important and let's use a clip for Instagram or for TikTok. And I really don't have to do too much legwork. AI's already built those prompts and responses within. I want our viewers to go away thinking it is good to ask questions and we don't have to find an answer. The beauty of it is in asking the question. So Herman, thank you so much for joining us today on EduCurious. It's fabulous to have you back. Keep us up to date, in the know, and all about technology. Thanks for joining us. And whether you're a teacher, a parent, or just EduCurious, join the community as we explore various educational topics and learn from each other. We will see you next time.